independent publishing companies, acting as the vice president of the synchronization department, synchronization, syncing your music with picture. I've done that for several companies. In June 2015, I started my own company and worked with clients starting with music from the 1940s. I have a great oldies catalog. I work with a lot of vintage soul and R&B. I work with the Turtles masters, including Happy Together and all of their hit songs. I represent the new Yoko Ono album, which is remixes of her with everyone from Death Cab for Cutie, Sparks, Moby. Work with some of Moby's artists. A lot of great electronic music out of Europe that I publish. So it's I like to have a very sort of left of center catalog. I really like to focus on niche catalogs because people know to come to me for that when they want something really different and stands out. Either music that's very period specific for scenes. I'm at least several times a month I'm placing music from the 50s and 60s in various productions. Some of that music belongs to Sindee over here, and I know her catalog very well, and I'm able to find great opportunities for that music. And then I'm always launching lots of new artists all the time, so it's sort of a little bit about myself.
Talking about myself?
Yeah.
By profession, I'm a lawyer and have been for 31 years, and pretty much all my career has been involved with music and film. I think there's some bio that I think LaBamba kind of foreshadowed the rest of my career. So I've been on both sides. The large part of my career has been initially cleaning up after music supervisors who may be creatively doing a good job, but really wasn't thinking about licensing or the paperwork or who gets paid when, and that's not which side of the brain they were working on. So the last, as he said, I have a company I named Sindee Levin Music, and it is a company that owns some copyrights that I personally own, which is 60s Northern Soul. But otherwise, at one point I was able to pitch music, but given the amount of music out there and the access and the countless programs, I'm no longer, it's a full-time job. And though I may know people, it's not, quote, what I'm known for, and I just don't have time in the day to really do a decent service with that. I mean, I've represented the song Kung Fu Fighting for 23 years, but people called me all the time for that. It was never an issue. I needed to pitch it. So these days, what do? I practice some. I still have a small publishing company. Most of the stuff, I also like to sit with period music. I'm not a songwriter, an artist. I don't come out of that arena. I'm one of the few lawyers that doesn't jam on the weekends. And so I don't feel confident listening to new music and going from what's good to what's fabulous. I don't feel strong enough. So I have a lot of period music. And it's a lot easier to go, oh, you're looking for 40s music? I got 40s music. Here it is. It's Artie Shaw. You know, it works or it doesn't work. So that's primarily that. And I also, over the years, have developed a large catalog of European music. There's more high-end classical and jazz. I seemed over the years to, from owning a society, have a lot of jazz artists that I work with. I practice some, not a lot. Yeah.
You own Artie Shaw as a publisher?
I don't. I have clients that have publishing that are of Artie Shaw music. I wish I did. I tried to buy it many years ago, and she's now my stockbroker. So, and I have her music, but she could have some of my stock, and I'd be thrilled to have this catalog. So I wanted to start kind of the process. Here you are, you want to have, most everybody wants to have their music and film or television, because the other, areas of making money are slim.
So first, do you all know how to register your songs? Do you have your songs registered with either ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC?
All about it, because
You haven't gone through that process yet. So
I'm a member, so I just need to do
Okay, so maybe that's something that we should
Let's start at the
address.
beginning.
Yeah, that needs to be done before you do anything else.
Now you're talking about registering your masters that you're going to be pitching, or?
You're a publisher.
The publishing is,
Well, I'm not asking
yeah, I mean, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC are what are called PROs, or publishing rights organizations. So that's, where you start. Masters is another area, but you should be registering those, and it's up to you which one. As a songwriter, you can join any of them. I don't believe it costs anything. I think it's a publishing membership it does, but I could be wrong.
No.
And I know CSAC is by invitation.
Yes.
So,
To the heck with them.
Well,
Until they ask.
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
For us, we have to have, for Cindy and myself, we
As a
have
publisher.
to have affiliates, all three, set up for ourselves.
One thing, sorry to interrupt you, Adam. I can argue both sides of it. If you want to set up a publishing company, so you're in essence self-published. It's the hardest thing in the world, in my mind, to come up with a name. It was much harder than naming my children. So you're either better to use your name, unless your name was John Smith, and then there's probably John Smith music somewhere. So you really, you can wait to be self-published, but the way when you do licensing in this country is you really need to have a publishing company. It's not done in Europe, but it is done here, and I believe publishing membership is charged. I don't know how much.
I think it's $150 at BMI, from what I understand.
That sounds right. I mean, they're probably about the same. You don't have to, but in due course, you're probably going to need to set up your own publishing company.
And it's well worth it. It's something you need to do. Okay, do you want to?
Question on that point. If you're a songwriter, you're a member of either PMI or SKYY, you're not going to do actual outside publishing and work, that kind of thing. You are automatically your own publisher.
Well, you are. It's not even legally. I mean, you own the copyright automatically once it's in a tangible medium, but you're not necessarily your own publisher. I mean, yes, you are, but if you go to license a song, and I'm jumping a little bit far ahead, and there's a cue sheet, and they'll have, name the title of your song, you as a writer, and the way our cue sheets in this country work, if it doesn't have a publisher name, it kind of confuses the system. So you need to, at some point, especially if you're going to be doing licensing, to set up your own publishing company.
Okay, so now that we've gone over that, it's also referred to as a PRO, performance rights organization. So people might ask you that. They might use either one of those terms, performance rights organization or PRO, and you could see that on a license. So it's good to have that taken care of before you get into the position where you're going to license your work.
This is an aside, because you kind of mentioned it. There's what's referred to as an MRO, which is a mechanical rights organization. You really don't, sort of a separate entity that you really don't, while you're licensing, need to worry about, but just in case you hear that. And she was asking about the masters. You don't really have to register those per se, but what Sound Exchange is, it collects for masters, artist royalties.
Or the Songwriters Guild and Collector Mechanicals too.
I have mixed feelings about the Songwriters Guild, to be honest. I don't think they're very efficient.
No, I'll give you that.
I don't think they're very efficient. I think they were started with good intentions, I think long ago and far away. I don't even know if there's an office out here anymore.
No, it's in Nashville. I used to be on the string video.
Okay, yeah, I think they have one up in New Jersey and New York, which got in a lot of trouble. They may do it, but I don't think, I don't think it's, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Harry Fox does mechanicals, and I don't want to get off into looking at, the politics of what's going on in the music business, but just in case you hear that term, or people asking what's Sound Exchange, and that's really for artists and for record labels, for master holders. So, go on.
What nowadays with all the downloading and stuff on the internet, does BMI or ASCAP keep track of that, or is that a separate company now?
It's both. I mean, they will pick up small performances, and I mean small, very small. And then also there'll be the assorted companies like Music Reports. They do a lot of them, or Pandora or Google, that will, do what are called the mechanicals for it. But
Did
it's
she
really
say Harry Fox does that? Betsy, did you say Harry Fox does that? Oh,
Yeah, an aggregator will be doing it. I mean, Harry Fox is in a state of flux because they were bought by CSAC
oh, I see.
in the last
Okay.
year or so.
So there's companies that we call aggregators that are in charge of putting your music up on iTunes and
Pandora,
now Spotify.
Spotify.
Well, there's actually more money from Spotify supposedly than what you're going to get from iTunes, according to some of my label friends. And we just launched a single of a new artist named Victoria. And I've been getting, the song wasn't even up yet, but we've been getting requests to play her in Japan and various places. Because I've had her in a bunch of ads. So that's another world where you want to be able to have somebody to handle that for you.
There are reputable aggregators you would.
Well, there's CD Baby for an independent artist that does.
It's TuneCore does too. But, I can't vouch for. I mean, I think they're basically honest. There's just not a lot of money. People, talk about, oh, I have 1 million, streams, and I didn't get any money. Well, there isn't that much money. I don't, unless you're Adele. So it's just again, at this point, expectations and having the proper expectations of what you're going to get. It may be, as Adam's suggesting, great promotion. If people do read those, listen to those things and look for artists there. It somewhat depends. I think somewhat YouTube is the same way. Not to get off the YouTube, discussion. And it can be lucrative, but I don't know, you need to have 1 million hits to make any kind of money off that.
But it's good to just have be aware of all of these things for your opportunities and have all your ducks in a row. So you have at least your song in all these areas. Because it doesn't cost a lot of money to, set up with BMI or ASCAP, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to, if you want to sell your song, to put it up on CD Baby or one of these places. So, you want to make people aware of your music. So you want to at least have it up in all of the different venues that you can. So it's something to do because you want, how else are people going to find you? So we're going to talk about licensing a song. With a film or a TV show, this happens in various stages of production. There's pre-production, production, and post-production. Pre-production before the thing is ever shot. Obviously, production is when they're out shooting, and post-production when it's in the can, as they say, and then they're in the editing room cutting the film together. Generally, a music supervisor, somebody that's out there hired by the production to choose music, is brought on, or is actually really working on the production during the post-production stage. It can happen earlier. I just had a situation this last month where they were choosing songs before the production is being shot. It's for this Jenny Rivera biopic. The reason they need to do that is because there's what's known as a visual vocal. I'm not going to stick in there too much.
Well, it's just, it's a visual. I mean, it's on camera.
A visual vocal means that they're mouthing the words to your song on camera. So that obviously they need to take care of that in pre-production, before the production is shot. To get a visual vocal is a good thing. You get paid more in your royalties when it's on the cue sheet listed as such. So that's something. These girls are in the car listening to the song that I publish, and they're singing along to it. So that's something. So that's a situation where they come on in pre-production. The music supervisor reached out to me, said, I have this scene set in this time period. What do you have? She trusts me. I've worked with her for years. I sent her a bunch of songs, and fortunately it was one of the ones that I published, and she chose the song.
Pat, I'm going to interrupt you because I'm sure people want to know always how you get your music to a supervisor. And we talked about there's several different ways that you can get to someone. I mean, I wouldn't in this day and age suggest just send it unsolicited in the email, in the mail. I think it will get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, this is a woman that's in a foreign country, and probably the only people that know her are record companies and publishers. So it would be very hard for you to have access to this person. That is why, as an individual, it's good to work with some sort of representation. There's various forms. There's publishers, there's rep licensors that don't deal with your publishing, and there's music libraries. And Cindy and I can go through all of those.
Well, how do we get music to you? If you the person.
Yeah, you can give me your music. I work in various different sort of niche markets. Generally, a lot of the music that I work with has some sort of buzz already. I work with a lot of artists that are already off the ground. That's not to say that I won't work with somebody that's completely independent and unknown, if it's right for the situation. So yeah, I'd love to hear anything that you want to give me. But I wanted to preface it with that. I do work with a lot of labels that have things already launched, and touring artists, or songs that were hits at a certain time period. Because I don't have a lot of employees going out and are able to launch new artists. So it is something that I generally stay away from, but that's not to say I don't listen to everything that you give.
Let me just start with the easier part, which is if you have a publisher. And usually publisher either runs, one of the majors, something they keep getting smaller, Sony, Warner, Chappell, Universal. And they all have big departments of people who pitch music. I personally am for the most part fairly cynical about them because I think unless you're at the top end of the chart, people are going to, not know who you are, and they're not going to do much. They may answer the phone with it. But then again, if you're one of the majors is willing to make a deal with you, there's more of a chance. They all have fairly big staffs going out and doing it. Smaller publishers, it depends. I spend my focus more on doing collection, in particular foreign collection. And over the years, I've had a lot of film and TV scores that I've collected for, and I'm doing a lot of infomercials scores. So it's not really music that gets licensed. As I said, besides my own stuff, I have period music. But usually, smaller or medium-sized publishers, they again have people that pitch, and they go around and they pitch for you. And the fees, I guess, vary. I think it's about 25%, but I'm sure it goes higher.
25 to 50%. Oftentimes 50%, for an independent artist, which, a lot of people have a problem with that. I'm going to give half of my license fee to this person that sent it out there. But, when you think about that, 50% of something.
Right.
Are you talking about sync, or are you talking about publishing? What are you talking about?
We're talking about the sync
licensing,
the sync
not collection, not collection.
The gross license fee. So let's say the license fee is $1,000. Half of that, 500 of it goes to the artist, and 500 of it goes to the rep. Which, for an independent artist, I think, oftentimes they can be a great
It's not
thing.
bad because usually most representatives won't take the publishing. We'll jump to that. So, that's a straight publishing deal, and how aggressive someone's going to be, it's really you have to talk to them and see.
Can you break down for me so I can get this straight?
Sure.
When I have a song that's synced. Explain the fees and how to break down. I own the publishing, I own the master. If you're pitching it, you want 25 to 50% of the sync.
Of the fee, not necessarily the publishing. Some people want the publishing.
But if you're talking about generally that would be if you're representing somebody that's, let's say, I was going to represent you as an independent artist. You own your master, you own your publishing.
Right.
I'm representing both of those because I'm working with both. And if somebody else, unless there's a label that controls your master, then we'd have to negotiate a deal with them. If I'm understanding your question.
Yeah, I just
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. Now we're talking about, just having a straight rep. I'm not as, I know some people who do that, but they basically have your music and they basically are representing the people. They're also usually very plugged in. And you're welcome to add to that. I'm not really usually doing a lot with that.
Well, that's what I do with you.
Oh, okay.
So, I work as primarily as a publisher. I try to publish, I publish my own material, not mine that I've written, but songs that I control and publish. But I also do representation for, or I call it the creative, for people like Sindee Levin music and the songs of Mike Chapman, which are songs by Pat Benatar, Tina Turner. I do the creative for that company because the gentleman that has that is more focused on the royalties and that sort of thing. So I have the connections to find out about where the opportunities are in the advertising and various things like that. So I work on a representation sort of situation where I'm just taking a commission. I'm not collecting anything on publishing royalties. Then there's the songs that I publish myself where I'm collecting on publishing royalties and doing that. And then I don't do administration of catalogs. That's something that Sindee does. Where that's where you own your own publishing company, and she's basically handling the business aspect for you.
Okay. Look at the library music. You have a little more experience than I do, but explain what library music is and how it works.
Okay, so there's what's called a music library, or or often known as needle drop or production music. You'll hear it referred to various different various different ways. That usually when people, sometimes now they're calling it, there's also another thing called royalty free, which we'll get into. But music libraries, they're basically taking music by writers and they're making affordable options to music supervisors. Music supervisors say, you know what, I need a bunch of classic bar rock for a scene. It's going to be background vocals. We only have this much money. Do you have a bunch of things? So they have hundreds of songs in that realm that they could offer you. They're not trying to launch these artists as, artists and out there and doing radio promotion or any of that. They're just trying to get synchronization. They're oftentimes they're licensing this music in what's called a blanket deal, where they might be charging $5,000 for 1,000 songs to a TV show for a season. And then at the end of that music, that money is dispersed to all the various writers. That's an option for writers that feel that they don't mind putting their stuff in there. If it's a non-exclusive deal, you still might be trying to go with your songs. You can also throw it into a music library. One thing that music libraries do that Sindee and I wanted to get into is they do something called retitling. So let's say your song is called Hey Jude, and you're putting it out there, and you're Lennon and McCartney, you're putting the song out there on your own single, but you also give it to 3 different music libraries. One music library might title that song as Hey There, and another one might call it a Jude song, and another one might call it something else. So they're creating a new title for that work. I have a problem with that because I feel that it sort of denigrates the original copyright. I don't know Cindy's feeling about that.
I'm totally against it, but it's done all the time still. And most supervisors, if they know, they don't want it because it creates all sorts of issues and problems.
Why do they do it? What's the point?
Well, they do that because, let's say,
The publishing.
he's got the original title, but he's also given it to him over here, who's the music library. He gets a license in a TV show under Jude's song. Jude's song gets licensed, and you, as the music library, have registered under that. You're going to be able to collect the performance royalties when it runs on network TV.
But the guy who wrote it isn't necessarily.
He's going to collect his
Maybe.
rider share.
If you take it to the extreme, we'll skip the people who used to do it. You know, you put yourself down as the songwriter and the producer. I'm not sorry, the publisher. I mean, it's fallen out of favor, but many libraries do it. You know, one of the issues is that it inflates what you have. If you go to sell it, and there's a whole list of all these songs, well, you know, each song has been 4 different things, so it's totally inflated what there actually is. The societies don't like it, and though it hasn't really happened because they do what's referred to as either watermarking or some kind of technology where they can identify songs. Well, if they're identifying the song electronically, they can identify, you know, it confuses issues. I think one of the issues is, excuse me, unless you have something really generic sounding, you know, Adam submits it on a non-inclusive deal, I'm submitting it, you know, this one's submitting it yourself. And supervisor's like, wait a minute, didn't I just hear that from somebody else? And most people don't want to be bothered with it because then it becomes an issue about who owns it, who brought it in,
Who brought it first?
and it's just looked down upon. I mean, whether legally, I think there's a question whether it's about copyright, but as a practical matter, I tell people to stay away from it. I'll be honest, I have a client who is a fairly successful jazz artist, and he, handed a bunch of these titles to someone else I know and said he doesn't care if they're retitled. They were just sitting there on the shelf. Okay, everybody makes their own, decisions.
There are studios. There's major motion picture and also the network, and they will not touch retitles. I'm not going to name names, but it's a major one out here.
Yeah.
I thought I had heard that when you do place, they want to retitle it just so that they could say, call it Song A,
Yeah.
and then from the show that it came from, then Song A from this other show. You're saying there's some sort of metadata or other ways that they can actually track that?
Supposedly, I mean, I've been hearing this for 10 years. I believe if there's some kind of data that can, identify the songs. I don't think it exists yet, or I should say, it probably exists. I don't think it's been implemented in society.
The watermark.
Yeah, the watermarking, there's been a lot of discussions. I don't think it's been implemented for the most part. It really comes up, my experience, where, you have a non-exclusive deal with the production library and it ends up the same music supervisors. And everybody is understandably concerned, like, whose song is this? And who wrote this and who owns this? And the last thing, something I've spent most of my career doing is getting calls about, you don't own those rights. Busted, who gave you that song? Because it creates all sorts of problems. And the studios and networks and production companies, nobody's happy to hear, oh, I made a mistake, the person told me it was this. At this point, music supervisor is a major career. It's not like a little Mickey Mouse thing to do. And it's assumed that they know what they're doing, at least to get songs vetted, that they don't belong to somebody else. Mistakes happen, people lie. We can move into the sampling issue.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're familiar with SoundHound, which you can download free from your phone, I mean, you have a song and you listen to it and try to identify it, and then you're finding out, like, why does the title not match? I mean, that right there would be a huge red flag to
Shazam.
the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same issue with like a Shazam. We get confused.
SoundHound's a competitor.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know what that is. I'm still using Shazam. I'll just throw out the sampling. It was a movie, the first time I heard about sampling was on a film called Bright Lights, Big City, which I think came out in 89 or 90. And, basically people were taking tracks and adding another track and, not disclosing it. And, again, nobody cares until lawyers, get into it. And as it's evolved, in particular with rap music, the different tracks, I pick up this old track and I put it on there. And Adam's one of the best people I've ever heard do this because I've sent him music. It's like, if you listen to, at 0.23 seconds, there's a song, whatever, X song, they've sampled. And, the last thing they ever want to hear from this lawyer, ever. But the sampling, it's why most people will stay away from rap music, because it's heavily sampled. And I've argued this, that different, having you know, old R&B artists who've been sampled by, Kanye. Kanye doesn't make the rules, even though he thinks he makes the rules. And, that was a nice payday. If that had ever hit a television show, it's a major payday. So that is most of the reason. And there's still things that somehow get in. And I used to hear years ago, there's the 10-second rule, there's the 3-second rule, there's all sorts of rules. It's okay. It's not okay. It's not.
Oh, there's a lot I can add to this part because I always was very concerned about working with very hip-hop producers because, I'm a huge fan of old funk and soul and like Sindee said, I can identify certain things. But I actually represent the publishing for a group called the Lafayette Afro Rock Band, who have been said their song "Darkest Night" has been sampled by everyone from Public Enemy, most recently Tiesto, a million people on just one song. But their own songs have never been actually placed in their entirety. But I talk to hip-hop producers now, and they're like, what are you, I try to vet the material before I get it, because, a lot of people think, you can use like a great snare drum hit. We're at the point now, watermarking, that I think that even if you play a snare drum hit and slow it down and do this or do that to build a drum, to build the beats, these things can be identified. There's certain drum sounds that are so proprietary to certain artists that if they can't do it now, they will find it. And that's what scares me. I license a song now, 5 years down the road, it's going to bite me. And it's something you really have to worry about. So I only work with people that I really feel understand this and understand that they're not going to put myself, themselves, and the studio in jeopardy by sampling something.
Oh, that's just sampling. I mean, you can play the same thing, but don't sample it. So.
Well, playing the same thing, then that gets into a publishing issue.
I mean, a drum.
Well, a drum, you can play a drum beat.
Right. I mean, there's no song that's completely brand new.
Although we're getting to things now where, if somebody comes to you, you've created something, let's say they want a certain track for a commercial, and you're creating something that sounds like that.
Right.
If it evokes the same vibe, there's all kinds of issues going on right now with that, with musicologists. So that's another thing that I think that's a whole other.
I think that everybody's scared, and supposedly the Blurred Line lawsuit.
The Pharrell thing. I mean, the Pharrell.
Well, I have my own opinions about a lot of that.
I'd like to hear about it.
Briefly, I think part of the problem was you got a jury in there, and here comes, Robert Davis. Abuse. And he's coming in there looking, I got money, I got this, and then you've got, Pharrell coming in, I'm sure looking pinned out, excuse me. You've got juries, and juries are cool. Most people are probably making, aren't making that kind of money. These guys look very cocky. And your jury is looking and going, I work hard and I make not this much money and I sure wish I could have fill in the blank. And they don't like the attitude. And he goes on to politics, with it. I'm not a music, apologist, so I couldn't say. And, it's a tough one. And apparently, the Marvin Gaye estate was offered money beforehand. And now this is what I've heard. I don't know for sure. And usually you do try and settle these things. It's prohibitive, and they wouldn't accept it.
Well, I didn't understand this. 30 years ago when I studied Title 17, my understanding was sound is not copyrightable. It's not trademarkable. At the time, the riff was, a phrase was, but duplicating somebody's sound was basically just a sound alike, or in jazz world, it was paying tribute to somebody else who called them. So it really kind of depends.
I think things have changed, and a lot of it is, I think it's technology.
Harley trademarked their sound with their motorbike because of that Chinese hotel.
To make possible. When you talk about sound, I work with Charlie Parker Estate, and this is a major one of the many issues about how many people have taken that sound, from Charlie Parker. Again, that's kind of my feeling about it. I'm sure other people go, well, you didn't listen to the music. I think there's always a lot of politics, behind all of this. But, did you want to have a little sheet here?
Yeah. So,
you want to talk about metadata because I got to use
yeah, I was going to ask another question. First, have any of you ever placed any of your music in any sort of production?
No, I have songs recorded, but not on CD, just
Okay.
on CDs.
You have them, so they are available. And you?
TV and then video.
And do you want to talk about any of those particular
How it
TV?
happened.
Well, the TV one, what was the placement?
That's with Radio Canada, which is national TV. I have a kind of special angle that I'm often on the media as a dream expert before around the front of dreams. And so when I get on the media, I'm giving you a general idea. You don't have to say, oh, I have to be a dream. But if you can somehow get on the media for something, and then I just say, oh, you're doing this new TV show, or you're doing this, hey, do you guys need music? And you're already talking to the key person, they're warm to you, and often they say, well, yeah, we haven't thought about it yet. Okay, great, I'll send you something, come with the date.
That's a brilliant
So
way
I
to do
kind
it.
of, I'll like segue to talk to the right person, have them warm to you. Mine is dreaming, but it could be anything.
Actually, the song I have on somebody's CD gets radio played every Christmas and got synced with some film, but I just see the royalties on my ASCAP thing. I don't really know even what it was synced with.
Well, that's great. So we have two people that have had things placed. And so you've done it yourself through your networking, through using the Dream thing, and you've done it as
I
a
don't know.
writer.
I don't know if Warner's publisher did it or the record company. I don't know who actually did the pitch to film the TV, but I saw something done through the record company.
Okay. Yeah, so one thing we were just, Sindee and I were talking about before, earlier the other day on the phone was metadata, and this is something that comes up all the time. Are any or all of you familiar with that, what that means, that term? Okay, so you have you're on your, looking at iTunes, I suppose, whatever you use to look at your music. I use iTunes, it seems to work for me. You have your song, your song's up there on the screen. You can go in and go info. I use a Mac, command info, and it opens up that MP3 file. And this is how I put all my information, which is my metadata. The title, you put in your title. Then you have your artist cell. I'm going to call them all cells, but for a better term. Then you have the album, and I put my company name. Then you'll have a comment section. And this is very important, and various music supervisors ask for this metadata in this standard sort of form. You always put in your contact information.
Yes.
That's the most important thing.
Do you want to put in lyrics?
I don't think it's going to hold most of that. Sometimes there is another cell for a year of release. You can do that. I do that because I have a lot of songs that were charting hits in certain time periods, so I'll put sometimes the chart position in the comments as well. Or I'll put in a co-publisher or other parties that are involved. But the key thing is to always have your information in there, because if somebody gets your song and they can't find the information, more than likely they're going to move on. And that's
On the metadata, as far as artist is concerned, if you're a songwriter who hires other people to record your songs, always getting work for hire agreement.
Yes.
So you own the song, so effectively for most of the places where I have a song, I'm the artist. And even some people that I have might do the singing, they don't want their name mentioned because of the fact that they put records out on their own. They don't want anybody to know that they're a demo singer.
Right.
So in the metadata for artists, is it okay to be the songwriter under those conditions and put yourself in as artist?
You could do that, or you could put your something productions or whatever you want to put there for the artist.
But you don't actually have to put the person doing the performance.
You don't have to put the person doing it. You can create a pseudonym for them, or for any of your sort of artists that you have these demos. You can create a pseudonym for that demo singer. I have an interesting catalog that I've repped for about 16 years, and the gentleman who passed away unfortunately last year, he was in his 90s, he would have a different artist name. He would do everything in his demos himself. He did them for like Sumatra and Dean Martin and various people. But he would have his name as the writer name. Then he would give himself different artist names because he knew he'd make more money if he had various names, so it wouldn't just be him for everything.
Oh, funny.
Just quickly looking over Adam's shoulder there, though we did discuss it, is about having instrumental tracks.
Yeah.
It's really, it's always good if you have them, because you usually always, in my experience, is you're asked for them in case they want to put something, behind the scene, and they don't really want all the words going over the scene talking, so they need instrumental track, and maybe it will go right into where the music goes in, and stuff. So, if you can have it, it's really for the best.
Yeah.
Do you want to have I hear the turbine.
So with mine, I do a backing track, a performance track, an instrumental track, and a release track. And do I need to register all three of those?
I was going to say register.
You're just going to you're talking about with the BMI?
No,
it's
it's
the same title.
It's the same title. It doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
That's just more to send to people in case they want to edit it. Not edit the music so much, but just have an instrumental track, underneath that.
What about having stems? And if yes, then how extensive should the stems be? Like, should it be the entire drum track or break it down?
Well, that comes up more in commercial when someone's doing an advertisement. Generally on a TV show, film or TV show, you're fine just having the instrumental track, because when dialogue comes in, they might want to pull out some of the vocal, when the actor's dialogue. But what you're referring to is stems, or the various components of the various music instrumental track. And that comes up often in a commercial because they'll want to play around and rearrange the song. So that's very important to have if you're doing that kind of work. If you're working on a trailer, people that license their music to film trailers, that's essential to have. Okay.
So do you want to have pre-made 30-second, 60-second stems? Or, if I own the tracks for my CD and I want to pitch that to film and TV, do they want, I have instrumentals, but I also have Pro Tools, so I could do all sorts of.
Well, yeah, it's just good to have that. It's good
If
to.
someone wants it, I assume they'll ask for it.
You don't give that out to people because it's a lot of bandwidth to give people if they don't need it. If they just need to hear the song to review the song, an MP3 is fine. Then when they get to the point where they generally want a high-res file, either a WAV or an AIF, or laying into the production, generally that's enough. With a trailer, that's where they give them the stems, or commercials where they want to play around with something. And Sindee and I were talking about licensing. We're going to jump ahead with that.
They want you,
Sometimes, when you're talking about, they will want to have the ability to amend the song somewhat. And that's what we're talking about. That's where they use the stems. Sometimes they're going to take your song and cut out a chorus or do various things. And you have to be willing to agree to that.
Is that considered derivative work now?
No.
It's not being rearranged. I assume what you're talking about, they may edit out parts. Usually, I'll move this in terms of licensing. You have to make a decision, you want to put that they can only use music in context with the film and in context promotion, not, another scene where your music was somewhere else. And again, it depends in terms of negotiating power, and I think it's more acceptable when you're in the networks of studio, you've got small films, I think people are less knowledgeable and they just want anything and be able to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, you want to be able to, when you do your license, generally they'll say all media, world, perpetuity. They just want to pay for everything, right up, you're an independent artist. That's not a bad thing. You want to get your music out there. They're paying you and you're getting that opportunity. What you do want to be aware of is the word out of context use or out of context advertising. That's usually hyphenated. And out of context, as Cindy's saying, they want to use the song in the trailer, but not within the scene that it was originally synced to. They would take that song and play it over a recut of the whole film in 30 seconds or whatever. That requires more money than that.
Adam, we're kind of touching on it, but okay, so you've actually synced, we want to talk about, been told, yeah, we want to use your music, and what the process from that is. And we want to somewhat discuss that.
Okay. So you or someone else has gotten your song to a music supervisor. The music supervisor likes it. He or she plays it for the producer and the director, and they see a cut of it. They see it in a sample cut of that scene, and they say, well, that works really well. We really like your song. They come back to you, and they're going to say, we really like your song. We're going to send you a quote request. And that's your first thing that they will ask for. The quote request generally will ask you to give a fee, or more than often they will suggest a fee, and they will give you the terms. They will say that we want this as a feature film, it's all media, world, perpetuity.
It's actually now, it's been reading, it's all media now known and hereinafter devised.
Yes.
Say that again, please.
It's all media now known and hereinafter devised. So none of us would have known about the internet 20 years ago.
So jump ahead a little bit. They'll give you a scene description. They'll tell you what the scene is, and that's important because if you have a problem with your song being used in a scene where they're slitting someone's throat or something you find objectionable to with your music, then you need to be aware of that. So you do need to pay attention to that. Some people don't care.
When I started, it was sex, drugs, and feminine hygiene spray. And I must say, in 31 years of doing this, I've never seen feminine hygiene. I've never been asked for that. A lot of sex and drug scenes, I haven't had, the hot one that's been for me for years is politics, and I won't touch it. I won't touch it. I'll turn it down. I have been requested over the years a few times. It's such a hornet's nest to get to everybody's political beliefs that I just make that decision to clients.
Alcohol is a big one too. I have one very well-known client. She won't touch any alcohol advertisements, even though we've been offered lots of money in the six-figure.
So when you said in perpetuity or the newer term, are you saying just for, like, if I place with you, you're saying you have that placement for perpetuity, or you have my song?
No,
It's just the placement,
It's
just
just
in
that the
yourself?
film company or the television station, just that song and that program,
Got it.
so they want to be able to distribute it
20 years from now.
20 years, 50 years, 50 years. No one ever thought that TV from 50 years ago, would be shown on MeTV. Did I ever think I'd see Gilligan's Island again? Did I want to see it again? The Brady Bunch? I guess it was the 70s. But, these things are shown. Perry Mason's on every night. So no one ever thought that. I'm sure there'll be new technology that none of us can contemplate, right now. So it's really talking about in that medium, not that they own the song. Right.
We'll get into that when we get more specific. So they've sent you the quote request. They've given you the scene. Hopefully they give you the duration. Generally, if they don't know, it'll say up to full use of full length of song, full duration of song. They say, okay, we're going to offer you $5,000 for your song, your they're often referred to the song, we're publishing it as composition, and master rights, the master of your recording. So you send it, and you look it over, and you go, okay, this looks good. My song is going to be in this film. You sign it, you send it back to her. Doesn't mean it's going to be in the film. It means you're agreeing to them potentially placing it in the film for $5,000.
You're saying you're asking for song and master rights? Or-
Yeah, could be. If you control both, they will come to you for both.
It's best that you have what you refer to as both sides. One thing, and just like Adam mentioned, I'll put in your contact information. When there used to be, when people use CDs predominantly, and I used to speak a lot, I'd always say, be sure you have your name and a phone number or a contact. And everyone laughed at me. It never missed a beat that at least one CD I would get would have no contact information. It would say Robert, and right into the trash can. I mean, what was I going to do with it, with this, with no one's name? When you're looking at that sheet, is to be sure your name is spelled properly, as silly as all this sounds, that, whatever your PRO is on there properly. And if you have a publishing company, it's spelled properly, and the PRO is on there. Because it snowballs about not having things right. And it's harder to undo them than to look at them, first. And it seems somewhat obvious, but it's amazing how many times I can, find mistakes. And it's really more, people are busy. People are busy, they're not looking at it, they may have an intern helping them. I don't cast aspersions on anybody, but it just,
It's a red flag, and people don't want to see that. Back when they were doing the CDs, like Cindy was talking about, you would take your songs, and when I worked at companies where we used to send out CDs, we'd have the intern would go, okay, make sure you put these up on a grace note. So when they put the CD into the player, even if it's not a released CD, it'll say, okay, here's the title of the song, the artist, and Sindee Levin music. And they can get all that. So nothing comes up.
What is Grace Note?
Grace Note is a company, like I know in my car, when I put a CD in the car, it says reading Grace Note, and it'll pull up all the titles from the internet. Yes, sir.
If you're offered a contract for a film and TV placement on an exclusive basis, as opposed to a non-exclusive one where you can offer it to other companies as well, would that restrict you from making the song available for a cover for an artist or not?
I can't say it's never done, but I've never seen it. It's always on a non-exclusive basis. Because if you're getting exclusive, you can't do much of anything with it.
Right. Well, we'll jump ahead when we get to the licensing process. But, you do see exclusivity come into advertisements.
Yeah.
That does happen.
And restrictions.
We'll talk about that.
There are restrictions when you do ads, or like brand rights.
So you sent that into the music supervisor. Generally, there'll be a term. You'll give a quote a certain amount of time. Most people, I don't worry about it. If they want to wait 3 months until they get the money together, it's fine. They can come back to me in 3 months on that quote. And
I see that less used than when I started. Everybody would have their quote. It's only good for 90 days. Sometimes when I'm in the mood, I put it on. I don't think I've ever said to someone, "Okay, I want more money now." One thing we'll continue is if you become difficult, everybody knows, and you're not the Stones, you're not the Beatles, you're not Bono. No one's gonna, they're going to avoid ever coming back to you. So, being difficult to be difficult, it's not the place. You'll find another vendor to be difficult.
that's why people do come to independent music publishers, because they generally work hard. They don't make them go through a long process of fax the pull request over, and we might take a look at it 3 days later. Then with TV, they need to sometimes
Right now.
clear things, afternoons. A bigger song fell out. We need to they'll call me up and say, do you have something that you represent? One stop, they'll say, all-in tracks, publishing master like you're referring to. And I might have something I can clear right away that'll work. Okay, we know that this guy's going to deliver and get the song done without having to go to the library and get something.
Well, yeah, I sometimes read the things or quick emails. I haven't seen a quote request. I really don't. I'm guilty. I'm like, okay, well, long my name's spelled right, publisher, everything is right. And I'm known around that I'm not going to jack people around. You know, it's a rarity. You know, say I get removed with some people, but it's rare. So we're gonna.
You've done that, like we were talking about, Sindee or myself has agreed to license the track to the music supervisor. Then they come back and they say they're ready to license. You may or may not get a confirmation that somebody's TV or the thing's been used. Now, you submit a license. Generally with the film, we'll talk about the films first. They will say, okay, you know what, the film's going to come out in 2 weeks, or whatever it is.
If small films may be coming out in 2 weeks, not usually studio film, but I may be wrong.
Please issue a license. Well, let's say you waited.
Well, that's true. If you've waited until they
Waited
lock it.
months and months.
It's locked.
Whatever they're ready to do, whenever they're ready to lock picture, they're ready, like, okay, we're ready to license this song. They will either ask you to submit a license, or they will have a license that their attorneys have.
Well, that's the difference. If you're in the studios, they usually will go to legal or film music legal, and they'll send, you know, they're going to send out their standard agreement. I would say for the most part, they're not making any negotiation. I mean, your name, your social security, and they will have a W-9. And if you want to get paid even remotely, you have to fill this tax information. Even if every time you do the same thing, you have to keep filling it out. It's not worth arguing over. But your name, the usage, I really find that for the most part, that no one's going to make any changes. And I know we've had this discussion. Do you get a lawyer, or you do it yourself, or if you have a publisher, they should be able to handle it. I mean, Adam is knowledgeable enough to handle it. When I speak on this, the worst thing you can ever do is go get, the family friend who's a real estate lawyer with a probate attorney, because they'll make all the wrong comments. It's probably true throughout the law. I don't, hold myself up as a tax lawyer. I don't give tax advice. And the same thing, nobody wants to hear discussions about venue or things that are just irrelevant. You're better off to do it yourself, frankly, in my opinion. And it just annoys everybody. The only things I usually put in are, I want a cue sheet. We'll get to that in a minute. I want a cue sheet. I put in it doesn't work. I want to be paid within 60 days, and that rarely happens.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other? I think those are the only two things I ever have.
Those are the same things I have in my
I don't put anything else in anymore. At one point in my career, I used to put all I want a DVD of the film. I don't know when was I going to watch these films.
Yeah, they're never going to give you that.
And they won't give it to you now.
It won't happen. The one thing about the cue sheet, just getting back to that, that's a very important thing. And just to let you know what that is, when the music supervisor is finishing, they're locking the picture, they're getting it ready for delivery, and they're licensing all the music, there's going to be the composer that's created all the underscore. You'll see on the cue sheet, it's basically a map, a road map of every piece of music that's used in the production. And you'll see one name that comes up a lot. That'll be probably the composer. And it'll have his PRO, and it'll say the name of the cue and the duration of that cue. It'll be like Smiley's theme,
Usually do that. I used to see a lot like, Q1, Q2, it really creates problems. It's better, they have like names on them.
Yeah. In the scene, they'll have the scene number. Then you'll start noticing, okay, here's my song. And you look at that, and you really want to read that, and you want to make sure. Did they get that right? I'm not ASCAP, I'm BMI. You want it because if that's not correct, you're not going to see your writer's royalties. So it's very important to get that correct.
Question along these lines. If you are the one that's pitching it, you own everything. When you sign it away, when you're signing it, I just lost it.
Are you talking about the license you're signing?
Yeah, when you're doing the license. What if you have a co-writer, and even though you own the master to pitch that, and you have your co-writer sign it, I have Universal as one of my co-writers. I want to pitch the song for licensing. Do I have to get permission from Universal to pitch this song? Even though it's my master monitor.
It's
my
best that you
artists.
do, because there's a tendency for supervisors not to want to go to the majors. Universal takes forever. I put that top of my list of people. They take forever. Sometimes they know what they control. I don't think Sony knows what they control.
No, they don't. I mean, they don't even have it. They didn't even know they had the songs when I recorded it and went to get.
Well, and this is the problem, and again, you can't take the risk of, okay, well, they're never going to catch me. Because you just don't, you don't know if they may not, but you don't know if they're going to. And again, if you
But can
somehow
I give a
screw a
license?
supervisor that way, that will be the last time.
But they're a co-publisher essentially. Do I have the right to give a license for a sync?
Legally, you do. You do legally, but it's
Right.
not industry standard. And again, the music supervisor, the tendency for smaller songs, is they don't want to go to the majors.
Got it.
It takes too much time, it's too much of a hassle.
And as a music supervisor, when they, let's say you issue that license, you're issuing, your license is on 100%, that co-publisher, they see that co-publisher is Universal, they're like, I'm not gonna do this, because they don't wanna piss off their friend at Universal for
Right.
a license of that fee.
And the majors tend to, there's always exceptions, they don't want to make that, all-in deal for $5,000. It's too much paperwork. I'll skip who told me this at Warner's, but said to me, you know what, Cindy, it's just as much effort to, make $1,000 as $100,000. So, and their bonuses are often tied to how much they bring in this department. Why do a $1,000 deal when they can wait for the $100,000 deal?
And that supervisor that's worried about upsetting that person at Universal, it's not hard for them to say, okay, we'll do this whole thing for $5,000. But that person over at Universal, they don't want to get them upset, because when they have to beg for U2 next week, they're like, remember you went and made me do that $5,000
I was
thing?
busy and I wanted to go home and, whatever
But
deal.
if I got a relationship with Universal and have somebody to call and get approval, that
If
would
you
be-
can get it pre-approved and get, something in writing from Universal, I always say, go for it. I mean, I've done that with the music I own, the publishing, I did with the record company, it's an old record company, and made a deal with them. I can license anything, I just have to give them their money. They don't want to be bothered, with doing these little deals, but I take care of everything. So, anyway,
So we're at the license stage.
we're at the license stage. Again, we can talk about briefly about payments, since you saw the thing from NARA. They were a little more obsessed about how do you get paid than I am. It's not going to happen quickly. You can just start there. It's not going to. It's probably not going to happen before 60 days. It's probably pushing the 90 days. And if you become a squeaky wheel and keep complaining, that's another reason no one wants to deal with you. No matter how much you need the money, nobody cares. I do put it as 60 days. I have lawyers, paralegals telling me, we're not going to do it. It's like, fine. Whatever you can do to get paid. I don't pay it. I mean, I have an assistant who's supposed to pay attention to it. When we talk about that, I have to ask about some things. There are different reasons. The studios, have the money, but they're backed up. They've laid off people. Same with the network. You get the smaller films, there are times they've run out of, money. And I'm not saying you shouldn't get your money, but having the expectation it's going to come quickly, it's not going to come
You
quickly.
want to make sure that you submitted, the W-9s and the
Yeah.
invoice and all that stuff correctly. But beyond that, you can't be checking in every week. I had something that I was waiting for from a very big studio. The actual placement aired in April. I finally got the check yesterday.
That's about right. So, I think there's following up. The problem is, as an artist or a songwriter, you calling every couple of weeks and following up is annoying. I'm a lawyer, I don't do it, I have an assistant who does it, and it's like, okay, I can always blame the client, blame somebody else. I mean, I rarely pick up the phone to do it, for many reasons. I'm not supposed to be nagging for my $2,000. It looks like, what's wrong with me? I fortunately don't have clients. No, I'm going to take that back. I I don't have many. They text me, where's my money, Cindy, where's my money? I want to talk about briefly, so you have the cue sheet, and as Adam said, the role of the cue sheet is the roadmap, and it's how you get paid what often is called back-end money. I don't want to call it some pet peeve, but one of the issues that comes up is licensing your music for free. And this is very common with reality television. The Kardashians, the Real Housewives of wherever, all these things are on E or Bravo, Punk, not called Punk anymore. Catfish?
Yeah,
Catfish. All these shows, they're fun, but they put licensing on. They mostly take free music and will tell you, oh, the back end will be good. Here's the reality today about, quote, the back end. They are small cable channels. Yes, the Kardashians are on 16 times a day, I think, and they rerun these shows. But there really is very little, quote, back-end money domestically, United States and Canada, in your royalties. And that's what the cue sheet is good for. It shows how you should get paid. Now, I assume the Kardashians have gone around the world. And, they're aired around the world. So that may be an exception because if they hit the television stations around the world, there's money to be had. But I know, like Adam did a placement for me on Scorpion. And the amount of money I got, quote, back end for that, I think it was a little over $1,000 for a song.
And that's
television. And it's gone down over the years.
How much of the song did they use? Was it a feature song?
No, it was a background vocal.
background vocal. I don't remember the
I
duration.
never watched it.
duration.
I don't watch that show.
Yeah.
But, it was a great placement. I don't know what I got paid. I don't remember. But yeah, network program, HBO, Showtime does well. But when you get into all these smaller cable channels, and then you move into Amazon and Netflix, you're not going to buy a cup of coffee with it. So I did it one time. I vowed that when I didn't do free licensing, I had a client who was music supervising some show for Nick Kids or something. And I got some other people that, I got a lot of placements I gave them. And there was really no, quote, back-end money to speak of. And I felt bad. One could say, well, it's promotional. I know some of the people who used it on their Facebook page and wherever else, for promotion. I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't do any free licensing ever again. It cheapens the value of your music. It brought down the industry.
Excuse me, I missed one word there before. You wouldn't do it, what kind of licensing?
Free.
Free.
Gratis license.
Yes, gratis. I wouldn't do it, or have, I wouldn't have a client do it. Again, I did it several years ago, and that's the only time, and it was to be the last time, because it just doesn't really pan out. Now, yes, you could use it for promotion, but there's always a fine line. How much are you doing for promotion? And how much are you just kind of giving it out there for free? And I know years ago, it was a little different context, but I said to someone, if you feel so, they weren't getting paid for their mechanicals. I said, you think so poorly of your own music that it shouldn't be paid for, it should be free. Why should I take anything more of it? Then go and give it away. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, that used to be with the reality shows. They used to never pay the labels because the labels, they would give them what's called a Chiron. Okay, here's the art. It gives the artist name and the label name and the song title underneath, and they thought they were going to sell something, but no one's buying anything. They're not going to see recoup from that.
Well,
So
WB used to do it years ago also on their website. It was mostly new artists. Because, again, I had Kung Fu Fighting. I didn't ever see them put it up for Kung Fu Fighting. Not that I needed it, but they did it for new artists on their, on the website as a gift for Gilmore Girls. And yes, I've watched a lot of television. Any more questions or?
You will take a seat?
You know what? I won't, because the honest answer is I won't listen to it. So I'd rather not have you wasted on me. And I really don't. I don't pitch music. Adam's pitching for me these days.
I prefer to just get a link that I can listen to, a streaming link. If there's a way to just do that, rather than I don't even use the CD player. I play things on my computer and I use turntables.
I can give you my website.
Yeah, that's best for me. Yes, I still play vinyl.
Can we get your contact info?
Sure. My company is called Wolfhouse Songs, and the email is Adam, my first name, at wolfhousesongs.com. WOLFHOUSESONGS.com.
Wolf with an E.
No E.
No, wait.
Can't go home again. One of my favorite books.
White double-breasted suits.
Okay, well.
Thank you very much.
That's all.
All right, thank you.
Keep going.
You guys had great questions, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.